The reading of literature doesn't necessarily mean that it is factual. However, there are many different religions and terminologies to lead a person like a bitten bridle in a sacrifice of animals that have covenants with whatever belief or binding principality to each covenant, and each sacrifice and each covenant that is made by uh, whatever sin involved with world conflict, a arrest, a judge who takes a spirit from a man arrested, or a murder, a death, or a retired man, something to that nature. In some scriptures, it talks about Saul giving birth with the moon and the sun marriage together, and Saul giving birth to a child that is hermaphroditic, and from the waters of the earth did he rise into the firmament above it, similar to Jesus Christ being crossed and then rising up into heaven. But it's a different scenario that doesn't quite state Jesus Christ as that child. So this is a different child, a child that possibly after the clouds that rest upon the ground in the early morning, in the day, or um, at the final end when all the clouds drop. Nobody knows exactly how it will be or what will take place. There are many prophecies written in time spent with the um, holy clouds with Hades, the, the clouds that are noted to be the brother of Orion, the great king Hades. This is another scenario of what child? Hermaphroditic child. Hades, both light and dark. Hades, possibly the child of Saul, and uh, Luna in the marriage of the sun and the moon. There are other um, prophecies that aren't yet written. Who is the child born from the sun and the moon? Or is there 144,000 child? Or is there a beginning and an end child? A hermaphroditic soul that steers the ark, the ship, that fertile God um, who carries the ship through for when the great destruction comes, or that last call for countenance in Jesus Christ, whether it was a name you used for sacrifice or a name that you used to help people, heal people, lead people, and shepherd them in a right manner, whatever countenance of Jesus Christ. Saul, this is my understanding, and I can't get over it because this is something that has been a revelation to me in every uh, relationship I've been with. There's always been a law involvement, and I can't quite put my finger on it. How it happens, it just happens. However, the consummation of childbirth, it is with a woman. We know that. But how does it come from the water and into the firmament above, separate from the water of the earth, but still a part of it? This is my guess. The woman took his soul. What I mean, a hermaphroditic soul in the sea, a fully bred sea, a water baby, a fully bred soul without darkness in it, a hermaphroditic soul from the sea, and they had shapen it in his image, saw Luna. She had taken it from him, and how? it would have risen up into the firmament above is another question. Did she trick Saul, Luna, the moon, and the sun? Saul being the sun and Luna being the moon, did she trick him and take his soul from the sea of the earth, also attached to the sea above, the hell, the sanctuary? Did she, in that embrace or consummation of a child, in that loving moment or that tender time, um, fully forming an image of self between the two, and whichever one is more alpha than the other between the sun and the moon? Whether the um, child coming from the water of the earth into the firmament, how did that take place? There has to be a preacher involved. There has to be. It doesn't say anything like this, but how did that take place? And I keep these notes for myself because I've, in many occasions in my life, understanding that the divinations is um, the woman who clothed in the sun, and the great Jesus Christ who pulled those 7 deadly sins from the woman and becomes a savior with great wisdom and knowledge and understanding, able to enter into heaven and purify that dust, that dirt, or that dust that falls to the dirt and then later rises up for a shepherding or a savior or a freedom from imprisonment from another person, a covet, a preacher with baptism that has no savior, has no salvation, has no savior into heaven, but a preacher, as long as he is with the spirit of the covenant, he is a part of hell, and that is the firmament above, which means he has some practice in the firmament above, and in that firmament does he have some practice in the seas in order to stir the wells, but it can only be done in the favored archangel or the white rider, um, or the pale rider in union with the white rider known as Sagittarius and Pisces, or the sun and the moon. This is these are just none of this is written in any book of mine, but to consummate a child or have a soul thefted, let's say, it can only be done in the flesh. Keeping yourself to yourself is um, the harmony of peace. Being don't prey upon others and don't wish people bad things with your own image. If God sees, or if the Antichrist sees your image in the many covenants that the kings and the lords have made and favored you to purify and um, be born into the hell sanctuary and be born to the heavens with purity. Hell sanctuary, in order for a body to have shape, it has to have a soul, right? I don't believe that there's any person in this world without a soul that has a body. That is actually, you can feel with a sense. You can't put your hand through them or run through them, swing and swing through them. They have to have a soul. You can feel them, right? This is my understanding of Saul and the great dragon orb between the sun, the moon, and the stars. The dragon orbs that was said to be destroyed and uh, spread out into the universe, into the world, and a third of the stars have been cast to the earth, and a third of the stars were cast to the sea. Or it's saying in a prophecy that taken place once, that a third of the stars in a great crossing, the consummation of a hell baby with all of these prophecies, a baby born to be crossed. Saul and and Luna, the sun and the moon. The firmament above that thefted a soul of somebody with a woman. A watcher in heaven that polluted themselves with a woman. Sulphur being the sun and Mercury being the moon. A water, a child raising up from the water into the firmament above. I'm just trying, speaking my wisdom and the result of a union. Um, they say it's raising a child or a preacher with his congregation who has ordained ministry in hell, raising a child and trying to use it against the one with real wisdom, the Pell Rider, a preacher that has some ministry or has some power above in hell, but has no real salvation in heaven. Meanwhile, anyways, the book that shapes a man into woman, and woman ruleth the earth, something that is thefted. This is the clothing of the divinations, which is the sun, the whore clothed in the sun, and then the man clothed in the sun after. The whore with all of her sons of men who have fallen into the dirt and raising them up as saints. That is the written uh, analogy of the Bible, but there are trickeries and treacheries in all of these things, consummating oneself with a woman. Theft of a soul when you have a preacher in his baptism who made an image of you and kept you in a constant covenant with that image in hell. Never ever in a spiritual well ever consummate with a woman while a preacher is practicing on you with his own baptism. He either lets go of his baptisms in the law and lets the man who could purify it have it, or he keeps it to himself, for the covenant is illegal for this manner of a theft. And I'm explaining how the dragon already has been destroyed once, and a great population of the earth was destroyed, the earth and the sea, with Jesus Christ. For Jesus wrote, I have been given power of both the heavens and the earth. And they did not believe it. They crossed it and found out how Jesus was wise enough to win the spirits, which is all people, all the divinations, not one diviner. The divinations were terrified of Jesus Christ's wisdom, and Jesus was a peaceful man. They were terrified, and then the great Trinity was made, and a crossing and a hanging, and still to this day are there hangings upon the tree of Judah. Great destruction in a covet by a preacher who has ordained ministry in hell's sanctuary. Dangerous. Most of those preachers are married to a woman who's got that shit up in the hell sanctuary. Dangerous. Consummating self with a woman while you're coveted by a church that you have no part in. Very dangerous.